This is a unmarked Rel Partha. Please don't touch. You can only be looking at it.
I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 28, Episode 1 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Stork.
I'm Kimmy.
And I'm Kurt.
Hi, Kurt. How are you doing? You've been on in a long time.
I know, it's been a while. I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Hey, what's that behind you I see there, Kurt? What's that going on?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
This right here? Oh, well, that's a promotional image that I put there for the game that I'm about to kickstart. It's called Lighthearted. I've been running an actual play of it on the Happy Jacks Network, and it goes live on the 26th.
Excellent.
Very exciting. And you can go right now and you can follow the pledge page so that it'll let you know when it goes live. So you can be one of the first people.
And where do you find that?
If you head to lighthearted.games with an S at the end, you can go and click notify me on launch, and that'll get you a notification as soon as the Kickstarter goes live.
Is there a hyphen in that URL or an M dash or anything like that?
No, it's lighthearted.games.
Excellent. Okay. Awesome.
But first,
Do you have anything you want to mention, Kimmy, before I start?
No.
You don't? Okay. I saw a thing go out.
No.
Okay,
So
all
my
right.
baby's cute.
they do that. That's their survival tactic.
Yeah,
It
she's
is.
super cute.
Yeah.
They're all cute, so that like when they do something infuriating, like you don't murder them. They're like, but they're so adorable.
She's stupid cute. She's
I am.
really cute. Yeah, that's sort of it. And I'm still working on Decima, and we're ordering the cards soon, but there's not like any promotional things.
Okay.
Feedback Decima, it's coming soon. Samantha killed it on the art. It's amazing.
It does.
And, yeah.
I saw some of the art in the emails you sent out today. It looks really good.
Yeah.
That's great.
In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, Jolene writes in about L5R Clans and how your initial exposure to the game colors your perception of it. I'd like to talk about that about other games as well. Ed from Minnesota writes in about heroes, religion, and magic, and MJ writes in with a correction about APs and playstyles. This is from a previous email where we got the gist of the email entirely wrong. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We're on the social medias. It's happyjacksrpg, all one word, on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and MeWe. And we also stream the show live on Friday at 7:05 p.m. Pacific Time at happyjacks.org/live. That's happyjacks.org/live. Who would like to read the first email? Oh, I wanted to mention. Something just happened to pass by my. I saw it. I don't know where I saw an email or where I saw it. There's a new. What is it? Mind's Eye Theater. I can't remember the name of the organization that actually puts the rule book out, but they come out with a new rule book. They came out. It's Mind's Eye Theater, I think, is the people that run the official LARP, but they're coming out with a new rules set, I guess.
Oh.
And they're basically doing their own Kickstarter, but they're doing it all themselves.
Oh.
As in
Like
the whole thing. Like you go to a page which it's vampirelarp.com, I think is what I saw.
Oh wow.
It's ambitious.
So yeah, that's gutsy.
Well, I mean, you have to have the credibility. Like business credibility to be able to do that, to get people to give you your credit card number on your webpage, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one sort of protection you have if you do it through something else. But I mean, it's a big deal. But it looks like since they came out with Vampire 5 that they're kind of rebooting the LARP rules, is what it looks like they're doing. But I was looking at I went to they have a store, and it is vampirelarp.com. And in the store, By Night Studios is the I guess the publisher, and they have all of the different tiers that you can get the thing at, but they also have other things the vampire related LARP stuff you can buy, including bath bombs. that appear, at least from what it looks like, they appear to turn the bathwater red.
Better than black, I suppose.
It's not.
I figured it'd be like a pre-game thing where it's glitter, so you can show up and show off your glitter.
Yeah, they sparkle.
But they have jewelry and all kinds of stuff on here. I was looking through it, and it's pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. Anyway, but I kind of wish I had found this when I was running the vampire game, because fucking where else are you gonna easily find like sealing wax and signet rings and shit? Because you're certainly gonna find it here. I guarantee it. But so anyway, for those,
I'm still stuck on bath bombs. We need to make Happy Jack's bath bombs or Poxy Bugger bath bombs. What would they smell like? Like, put a Poxy Bugger bath bomb in the tub and it smells like beer.
And they look like plucked out eyes. Abyssal and blood of my enemy's bath bomb combo.
I'm thinking about buying one. Just, I know a couple of people that might dig that.
Blood of my enemy bath bombs. Anyway.
Blood of my enemy bath bomb.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that because that came through, and it is role-playing related. Blood of my enemies.
If we got Happy Jack's bath bombs, what would we do them? What would the theme be?
Beer.
Beer or dice, maybe? You can make them dice-shaped?
Yeah, well, definitely dice-shaped, but that would be the flavor of them. Like, they would be beer-scented.
Yeah, make them dark and sneak a D4 in there, and so you have to find it. It's like a mystery.
Get in the tub, just put foot right down on it.
Oh, found it!
If you're lucky, your foot.
Right?
Yes. I was gonna make scented candles for Fair for the Boggards last year before Fair was canceled, and I was gonna I had one called Happy Jack's and Drinkable Ale, because there's hops oils that you can use for candle making, and there's beer oils that you can make. So you just need those two plus something that smells burned, and you've got Happy Jacks. And I was thinking Boggard Stage, and find all kinds of unmentionable smells to combine into one, and what it actually smells like to be on stage with the Boggard. I thought it'd be kind of a cool novelty thing. But
that is funny.
The candles you'd never want to actually light.
No,
you never want to actually open them.
Day 3 board game room.
Yeah.
There you go.
Gamer Funk, that would be the Happy Jack candle. That'd be perfect.
Is it sad that I am at the point now where I miss that? Like going to a con, even with that, sounds fantastic, and bring on the Gamer Funk. It's gonna take me 10 minutes to start complaining about it again, but I miss it.
Yeah. Oh, to beer con. Well, they have that fart spray. You could use the fart spray.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
Well, of course it is.
It'll clear a room.
But you could take that and spray it inside of a small container and then just pour a little bit in. You wouldn't want to spray it because it would...
You put way too much thought in this.
Yes, I have. You know what? And they would have been awesome, because I found all the stuff I need to make the candles, and the little metal candle container things with the little lids. Mm-hmm. I found all the stuff. I just didn't... Damn.
I love it.
Maybe next year. Okay. Who wants to read the first email? L5R Clans and Initial Exposure from Jolene.
I think Kurt said he wanted to because it was a short email.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Slacker.
All right. Let me clear my throat here. L5R Clans and Initial Exposure from Jolene. Hey, y'all. Jolene from the Discord here again with a pretty simple and forward question. How much do you think players' thoughts on playing multi-clan games versus single-clan games are based on their initial introduction when playing L5R? I think I was introduced to the game by playing a birthday celebration in which many clans were invited. Then it becomes a murder mystery, and it's up to the PCs to figure out what's up. That and the Topaz Championship seem to be the types of first sessions I always end up in. So I have a lot of familiarity with playing special magistrate games. Y'all obviously had the Saga of Inukai, which was a crane game, so many of y'all seem to have that as a cornerstone. I don't know. What do y'all think? Stay safe and enjoy a snack or drink. P.S. Do any of y'all have a school clan you want to play, try, but have yet to have the opportunity?
I mean, I think the first impression of any game is sort of what imprints itself on people, and we've continued to play that way. I think the last campaign is the closest we've come to doing a multi-clan game, and that was we ended up, it being Ronin, so we were kind of clanless, even though we had like character traits and some of the
Right.
the characters were built with those clans. I don't know. That's a really good question.
L5R is so... Clans play such a huge part in the game, it's really hard to escape it, even more so than Vampire. Because vampires tend to just sort of wander off on their own for centuries and just do their own thing. And, they'll check in with their clan out again. And you can play it real clan-centric, but they have the option not to. But with L5R, I constantly feel like the clans are always in the background, are a very important part of the characters. And whenever they go into a city, the clans start taking precedence. So it's really hard to escape clan dynamics in that game. It's always there. Even as Ronin, you're dealing with other clans and how they view you.
I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go first.
Well, I never played it. I only read the book and then decided to run it. And that my first impression reading through the book was, how the fuck is a party made up of 4 or 5 different clans going to ever get along?
Right.
That was my first thought. So for me at least, I would say in this case, no. I ran or stipulated that everyone make a Crane character because I could not wrap my head around a party working together without there being a bunch of infighting. Now, maybe there's the assumption that most people have when they come into L5R is that it's more like Vampire. Maybe there is going to be a bunch of infighting, and player PC versus PC tensions and stuff like that. I don't know. So, I mean, for me, I think the statement that your first exposure to playing a game determines kind of how you view it, I think that's absolutely true. But with that particular game, I never played it. I've never played it. I've only run it, and I got the perception I got of the game just by reading the 4th edition book.
It's interesting that you compared it to Vampire with the clans. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's 100% correct. And I think, like, thinking of it that way, I've always kind of thought of L5R as, because of how we've played it, like, not because of anything it says in the books. Now, like, kind of reflecting on this, I've always kind of thought of it as a game where you all were trying to work together for something. And I thought of it as something where there's like a lot of like infighting things between players and the NPCs, but that's 100% right. Like, it's supposed to be, in many cases, I think played like Vampire, where you're all trying to like backstab each other, and you have all this political happening under the surface with each other, and that's interesting. It's
just like in
really
Vampire,
obvious, but I hadn't thought of it.
Right.
Just like in Vampire, some of the clans are diametrically opposed to each other. It's not just Scorpions against everybody. The Lion don't like... Is it Crane?
Yeah,
No.
Lion and Crane don't like each other.
Don't like each other. So it's built into that.
The crab
There's
don't like
already-
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think more, like, thinking of it this way, I think it's more what type of game you want to play. And if you are someone who's interested and wants to play L5R with all those political machinations, like Stu was just saying, and you're trying to play against each other, at the same time you're trying to do something together, and that's what interests you about that setting, then yeah, I can see that playing with the multi-clan game would be like perfect and ideal,
right.
Especially if you don't want to be like literal monsters like Vampire. So it's interesting. Huh?
There's some limits to it, though, too. Like, in order to train up in your school, you then have to go to your someplace that your clan holds sway and learn your disciplines from your Crane fight master or whoever it is. We found out that if you go Ronin, there's a whole school of Ronin. It's all of a sudden the stuff, anything you learned past what you learned before you went Ronin, you now have to pick from that school. It's really, the clans are just really centric in that game, and it's really hard to escape it. I don't know if you can play it clan light. I don't know if you could just sort of like D&D, where the fighters went to fighter school and the rogues went to the thieves guild and the bards went to music school, and they all hang out at an inn and get along, because even though they're from different disciplines, they're not actively competing against each other like the clans do. It's always there. It affects everything you do in L5R. Well, you are subservient, I think, to the clans and their dictates first, and then your character comes second.
Well, I think... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, they mentioned Topaz Championship and Magistrate games, which to me says that they've found some core purpose or reason why these people from these clans have to work together. Right. Mm-hmm. So, like, the core conceit is you all have a goal, but obviously in achieving that goal, the way you do it is going to affect your clans differently. So I could totally see wanting, I want my clan to come out on top, or I actually want this thing to happen in a certain way just so that I bet my clan benefits more, or whatever, but ultimately we all have to finish the same job together. Right. I've played a lot of games I haven't played a lot of L5R. The only L5R game I played, I was an orc in Bill's game at a con.
L5R?
Yeah, he did like a fantasy L5R game when we were orcs.
Oh.
But I've listened to the Inukai ones, and I've read the 4th edition books, and I think it could be really interesting to lean into the clan dynamics, right? To bring that to the table as like, as this clan, this is really important to me, and here's my side mission, or here's my alternate objective or way I want to achieve our goal together so that my clan benefits at the end. Yeah.
My question for people who are playing L5R and doing like long-term campaigns with it, because he's talking, I don't know if it's who it is.
She.
But Jolene, I don't know. They are. They talked about like a one shot that they played at a birthday, that was an actual birthday celebration in the game. Never mind.
Yeah, it was in-game birthday celebration.
Yeah. But like if they're playing long term, like is it just sort of, because when you're playing Vampire long term, it's like, okay, at some point people will be murdered. Like PCs will murder each other, and you'll have to get a new PC. Like that's how. Like, is that something that people who play L5R with multiplayer games, like, long-term, just kind of accepts? Because I feel like that would be inevitable. Even if it's not,
absolutely.
Yeah.
At
so
least
it's like,
a duel.
Yeah. I mean, super deadly.
And duels are fucking deadly.
Even if you don't want to, your clan might force you to. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll force yourself to. Because duels are awesome.
Maybe that's what we have to do. Maybe that's like the next Inukai game.
That's what I was just thinking. Run an Inukai game and just pick whatever clan you want. Let's just figure out how it's going to fucking work.
Well, that segues to the next question that he had there, which is what clan would you play? And I touched on it on one of Stu's games. Again, we're dealing with the latest iteration, so I don't know what schools and stuff exist. But if I could pick any of them from any of the various editions, I was really intrigued by the Fox clan. The Kitsunes and stuff, and I had a whole little character arc ready to go, and I had some really neat details, but I was really fascinated with those guys.
That's one of the minor clans, I think.
It is.
I like Crab. I think Crab are awesome.
I'd
play Crab. I'd be great Crab.
You play them so well, though, too. They're a bunch of curmudgeons.
They are.
Well, just keep doing what we do, because you people are too busy fighting.
They're just duty-bound motherfuckers, and they're gruff. Yeah. They're dwarves. They're the dwarves of L5R. The crane.
They fancy themselves as paladins.
The crane are elves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The elves. Dwarves. What do we got?
Lion, I guess, would be the fighters or paladins.
They think they are.
That's a crane answer. Or that's a crab answer.
Scorpion of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah. I think if I was playing, like, part of me really wants to do Unicorn Clan because of the horses, but that's such a hard thing in games. It's like, hey, here's my horse. Like, it's going to come everywhere with us. And it's, I don't know, at least in the type of games we tend to play, that's not a great helpful thing. We don't tend to do giant battles very often. It's like, hey, let's go beat up this guy in this inn. Here's my horse. Like, not helpful. But so I think I'd like to do, I think I'd like to try Scorpion, actually. Like.
Oh, see, Scorpion, that's probably my second favorite is Scorpion.
Yeah, I think that would be much more fun to play, as much as I always want to have a horse.
Only because of the backstory.
Off Scorpion.
Well, I love the backstory of why their clan is that way, which is that they're there to sow dissension so that the clans never unite against the emperor. I mean, there's a lot of different takes on it, but they are that way not just because they're that way. They're that way for a very dutiful purpose.
Yeah, I always saw them as the whipping boy. They're there to be the enemy so that the clans don't unite against the Emperor. They're always uniting against the Scorpion.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And which begs the question, like when you're playing a Scorpion, everybody knows that you're going to betray them at the end. It's like, you know, so everybody's constantly watching their back around you. I don't know. That's a tough gig. It's like playing a Puritan at fair. It's like you just end up being the bad guy and having to lose in every verbal conversation.
Well, I really liked when we did the end of our last vampire game, and I got to be the God, what do they call it? Setite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the followers of Set. Yeah.
Yeah. The set, it was super fun. That was really fun, and it was like I think especially after being like the very organized like Ventru that was like micromanaging everybody for so long, to suddenly flip and just be like anything I want was like super really great. So I think that would be neat to do that again, like kind of like, I don't know, it was really fun and I enjoyed it, and that was the first time I'd really played a character that was quite that duplicitous. So I think I'd really enjoy trying to do that on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen what would have happened with your character on a longer term, because that was very close to the end of the campaign anyway.
Yeah, and we knew that, so it was kind of like I just got my feet wet in the evilness. It was very fun.
All right.
I think it was one of Tappy's stories about the Scorpion, where they end up making themselves out to be the fall guy to save the day, so that there is someone to blame, so everyone else is okay.
Yeah.
And like ends up actually being the most honorable out of the group, but they have to take the fall because they're the Scorpion and that's their job.
Right.
Well, and that's the interesting thing too, because even if they're being honorable, everybody doubts it.
Yeah.
So you could play a straight and narrow, like perfect, you know, very honorable Scorpion, and everyone assumes the opposite just because they're Scorpion. So it's a neat thing to kind of play off of.
James V is suggesting a Vampire the Masquerade circa L5R campaign. Combine the two.
Samurai Vampire?
Yes. So everyone has two clans. You have your L5R clan and your Vampire clan.
Wow.
Boy, that's a lot of disciplines to juggle, and well,
I don't think it would be that hard.
A lot of sidebars.
You have to pick which system you're going to use and adapt the other system to that one.
And yeah, there's D10s everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of D10s. All right. Heroes, Religion, and Magic from Ed in Florida. Who'd like to read that? Or should I read it? It's long.
I can read it.
Okay. Let me know if you need a break. We can.
Oh, dang it!
It's long. It's long.
I should have looked at it first. Oh, well.
It's not long.
Hello, Happy Jackers and Jillers. Ed from Minnesota, now in Florida here. I am writing today to throw out a few ideas for you to discuss your thoughts on. I don't know if this is something discussed long ago and far away, but I hope it's at least will provoke a few ideas that I can steal for my own games. Premise in the first. PCs in most games are extra special. They are the heroes, gifted, special, monsters, whatever. Something makes the PC different from everybody else. So, in my world, I chalk this up to an extra special energy, commonly called magic. Stealing heavily from Earth Dawn, this magic is what allows the characters to break or bend the laws of reality and do incredible things. And it is the belief of the character that defines the limits of what they can do. So, in Torg, characters can bend reality through the use of possible energy. In GURPS, they are 200 points instead of 40. In Savage Worlds, they are wild cards. In D&D, they have levels of the heroic classes. All of this makes PCs and selected NPCs important people, capitalized, in the world. This makes many groups interested in getting them on their side, or getting rid of them if they are causing problems. I think this makes everyone understand why they can be important, and without forcing them to be. Do you want to talk? Do you want me to read the whole thing? And then
I would read the whole thing because he kind of has a conclusion that this is sort of a synthesis of thoughts.
Oh, excellent. Premise in the second. All classes in the world are due to the magical ability of the PC. And not outside forces. Playing a warlock, great. An entity taught you magic by allowing you to tap into your own power source. Playing a cleric, the power is all yours. You are just focusing it in a specific way through your choice. This approach allows you to have people change over time without...
Uh-oh.
You
froze.
Pick path. Suggest...
You Go back to this approach allows.
Oh, am I back now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're back.
Okay. This approach allows you to have people change over time without losing their previous abilities. They just pick a new path. I'll suggest you take a drink right now and discuss the pros and cons you see. Oh, see, he wrote in like.
Okay, yeah, he wrote in his
breaks.
breaks. Thank you. That stops us from having to think. I think I'm against it.
What, about the having people be considered magic?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. It depends on. I think it depends on what kind of setting you're dealing with. But I mean, for some settings, I think that would work fine. But for
I can
others,
see where he's going at. He's trying to make sure that your heroes stand above the normal people, right? Just they're extraordinary people, which is sort of implied because they are the heroes, right? You know, the reason that your D&D group goes adventuring is that they are the best of so where they're at. Even at level 1, they stand above your normal people. But it's never formally been, I guess, like codified this way. But it's always sort of just been implied that the reason your heroes are, or not. Sometimes, you know, an adventurer is just an ordinary person, and then they become extraordinary through the course of the adventure, which I also think is an interesting arc for a character. You know,
this kind of reminds me of who was it? Tappy? When we were talking about 4th edition D&D back when we were running 4th edition D&D, and he said 4th edition D&D feels like that the player characters, they're all like different variants of Jedi, which is a very similar conceit to this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's that it isn't just that, you know, these are just, you know, the people who would stand out in history or whatever. These are like, there's something different about them. There's metachlorians in their bloodstream or whatever.
Especially in 4E, everybody had a little magical power that they could do.
Yeah, they all had stuff that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had to have tactical combat things that allowed them to move people around a map, so they just futzed it.
I think I understand what he's getting at, and I sort of get it, because I might just relabel it as like a geese or something. Like your players have a legacy or an air about them that's attached to them that's going to make them important in history but we don't know what it is yet.
Right.
So if they ever run into like an old oracle, they say, "Ooh, you are destined for great things," as opposed to you're just going to dig ditches for the rest of your life.
I think if this is your jam, and I think, you know, that's great. I personally love the chance of failing. I love the idea that if I change, you know, if I piss off my god as a cleric, then my power's gone. You know, I kind of love putting my player characters as a GM and as a player in those awkward situations where they have to make choices like that. But I also really like, you know, some players hate that and some groups hate that. So this gives a great reason for, if they don't want to risk that, if they just want to, you know, build as they go, to have a reason why they get to keep things and have special things happen to them. This very much follows kind of like the chosen one type arc that is so prevalent in every story ever, you know, Luke and Harry Potter and all these things where they're like the special ones. And that's kind of cool. That's fun. That's one of the reasons we play these games, is to have these heroic arcs. So this is a great kind of facilitator for that.
I still really wanted Neville to be the chosen one in the Harry Potter.
I know.
I would have been.
It's such a great fan theory that you came up with.
It would have been so awesome. And such a good life lesson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guy's hot now. Like he's
I think,
Really?
correct me if I'm wrong, Stu, but I think in the GURPS books, the whole preamble talks about why your player character gets 200 more points as opposed to the 44 normal, and it talks about them being heroic and extraordinary and standing above the rest and all of that. Yeah. So, and I think in most games, all of that is implied in the preamble that nobody ever reads anymore.
I mean,
Stu got quiet.
Did I? You can't hear me?
Mute yourself?
No?
You're good for me.
Oh, I must have muted me.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
I can hear both of you.
All right. Yeah. I think, in GURPS, if you want to play, you can play. We used to screw around and play like we played a really low level game once where everyone was playing kobolds, and I think everyone made their characters on like 10 or 20 points. They had to take a bunch of disadvantages, so they had more points to work with, and then they built kobolds, and it was like a 1-shot or a 2-shot that we did once a long time ago. and I thought it was hysterical. It's very fun to play, like the underdog, and have them, and their successes and their triumphs, they're very minor, but they're big to them. I like those. I also have a soft spot for kobolds. So.
I really like this idea. I mean, I kind of used it in, where is it? In Lighthearted, all the characters get chosen by one of the 4 deities when they come into contact with dark magic. They get like light powers, and that makes them special, so they can go and fight the darkness. So like, I built this into my world. I think this is kind of a neat thing on a setting level. Like, I would not apply this to every game, for sure. Because there are times when I just want my fighter to be a dude who just, like, did some great deeds and beat the odds, right? But, like, in some settings, I really like this idea that, like, you are special because you have this cool power, right? You've been chosen, or you've been gifted, or you've been born with this innate ability. One of the stories, this isn't an RPG, but it's Kill the Farm Boy by Kevin, I think it's by Kevin Hearn. If you can be chosen for a quest, like someone can just give you a quest, and while you're on a quest, you are like an entity tied to fate, and so you can't really die while you are a quest goer or on a quest, and you end up with like these weird supernatural happenstance things happen to you, like people, it's hard to kill you by accident because you're on a quest, and so fate is like looking out for you. The book has a really great premise, and it's basically a D&D adventure, so I suggest reading it. But that's one way to handle this type of thing, right? Like, oh, you've all been given a quest, so now fate is paying attention, and you're just not going to die until you complete your quest. That kind of stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Too.
All right, I'm going to continue.
Premise the third.
Premise the third. Yes, I was about to say it, Stu.
I know.
Since the PC's own magic determines their power, gods and demons and everything similar do not have to be omniscient beings. They can be powerful beings with their own goals and games. Often, the gift of a powerful being is just XP or a magical item. And the spell that grants communication, I have tied to several specific beings that use the energy of the spell for their own purpose and give knowledge as a gift for giving them the energy. In my D&D game, a vast majority of the spells utilize devils to work. And did you cast Comprehend Languages? An invisible imp appears and begins to whisper translations in your ear and speaks your words. That's really cool. Back in an infernal tainted voice for the next hour. I did steal this concept, the concept of ectoplasm from Dresden. So kill the imps and they turn into slime that evaporates in a few minutes. It's a very handy thing.
As it should, yes.
Yes. Hope you're not discussing anything you don't want the devil in charge of the imp to know. Did you cast Commune? You're sent a messenger from a greater power, be it a demon, devil, or old one. I have a fun world history where angels create souls for demons and devils to forge into soldiers to fight against the old ones. Good times.
Interesting.
Yeah. For me, the fun part is not letting the PCs know much about how things work, but to give small hints of the weird that exists as they progress through the world. And nothing is more fun when they start to understand that the high priest of the local church of light and dark, the Egyptian pantheon in my world, is a devotee of Set, which means that he is a powerful sorcerer focused on lightning magic. By refining where the power came from, I also open the door for religion to be a spiritual choice and not a requirement by a specific class. The high priest of Montu may be a fighter and unstoppable by almost anyone, but his brother, another high priest, happens to be a bard who inspires the faithful to acts of greatness on the battlefield. This has resulted in a ranger in one game becoming a warlock to one of the BBG in exchange for a major magic item and the promise of power. All he had to do was bring the BBG back from the dead and break him out of the cursed city he was entombed in. I awarded the PC XP as a gift from the BBG, which he used to buy a level of warlock. Good times. So I hope this has given you something to talk about for a bit. I'm curious to what your thoughts are and whether and what new ideas you come up with.
Oh, you paused again. You there?
Uh,
Hello?
yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, now you're
Hello?
fine.
Okay, I apologize. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Did you see? I hope this is giving you something to talk about.
Yeah, that's where you need to start.
Okay, so I hope this is giving you something to talk about for a bit. I'm curious what your thoughts are and what new ideas you come up with that I can steal for my continued world evolution. I hope you're all doing well, and drink. And for Minnesota, formerly Big Troll on the forums. P.S. Bow down before the ones you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. Head like a hole, 9-inch nails. Excellent. I think that's awesome. I think you need to write a setting.
Yeah.
I think this is like really cool, and not a setting or even your own like RPG with system, because this is all really cool stuff that you're kind of homebrewing into other systems. Like, this is very cool. Make it cool and make it yours.
Yeah.
I especially like the sort of take on the spells. Like an interpretation spell actually sends like a little dude to sit on your shoulder and whisper in your ear and then translate for you, which is could be incredibly distracting.
Yeah.
And I love that idea, and but I love the idea of tweaking what specific spells do, and it's really only set dressing for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But,
absolutely.
But I like the fact that everyone that their magic would suddenly become way more unique for the different disciplines.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
an awesome idea, and it makes it doesn't say it's like I cast this spell. No, this thing shows up and it. I love
it. It reminded me a bit of the old Stormbringer RPG, where in order to have magic happen, you would have to summon and bind a demon into an item. So if you wanted to cast fire, you would have to bind an Ifrit into a ring, and then every time you wanted to cast fire from that ring or have a fire effect or use it, you'd have to have a battle of wills of that Ifrit, win, and then it would do your bidding and throw a fireball. And so in order for you to have multiple magical things, you had to have multiple demons on your person bound to various items. It's a very cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then magic is just you in a battle of wills with the demon that you have bound in the item, as opposed to some nefarious magical force that, flows through us and binds us and permeates us.
The universe, yeah.
And a good dose of penicillin can get rid of it all.
Rid of it, yeah.
I actually ran I had a long-running Savage Worlds fantasy game where I heavily customized all of the powers for each individual player. I tried to get them to do it themselves with trappings and things like that, and then we found out that the players just didn't care about game design as much as I did, and so I ended up having to write like pages of spell books with the powers, so that they all may have bolt, but like one of them is pulling a fairy out of their coat and like throwing it at someone and then explodes or whatever. Like,
yeah, I don't mind that. I love that.
They all got different. But I even did the thing that he was talking about with anytime they got a boon from a deity or something like that, I just gave them 10 XP and said, go buy a couple edges and that's the boon you got. Mm-hmm. So I think it's an excellent idea. I did it. It worked great.
Okay. I can unmute my mic now. The fire engine went by and my dogs have stopped howling.
It's great that like when you mute it and then take the time to just tell everybody about it after.
Someone was right in the middle of the sentence when
Next.
they started.
Yes.
APs and playstyles from MJS. You want to read that story? Or you want me to read it?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
Hey, Happy Jacks. My last email, I don't think I made myself clear enough about behavior. Not sure. When I referred to players acting like massive douchebags, I wasn't referring to the players being rude to one another or their PCs being rude to other PCs. I was referring to mostly interactions between PCs and DM-run NPCs. As I mentioned before, I've watched a number of tabletop RPG live streams and videos on YouTube ranging from you folks and Happy Jacks to stuff like Critical Role, live streams on the Dungeons & Dragons channel to Oxventure, I've never heard of it by outside Xbox. It seemed to be a recurring theme that when PCs would interact with NPCs, everything from shopkeeps and innkeeps to town guards and nobility, they would be threatening, rude, or even demeaning to the NPCs in some way. I think the reason I started noticing it more and more is because there never seemed to be any consequences for this sort of behavior. It didn't foster immersion in the setting. It didn't make the game world or the people that inhabit it appear alive, which brings me to one of the topics in this email: consequences for bad behavior by PCs towards NPCs. What are your opinions on consequences for PC behavior? PCs react to NPC behavior, especially violent or insulting behavior from NPCs. Shouldn't the same also be true for NPCs? Would negative reactions as a consequence for PC actions be good for immersion or in the world? Does using consequences for PC actions seem more like a punishment for having fun than a good chance for role-playing? Is there a way to do it without it being seen as a punishment? Such as reaction rolls from the DM to see how NPCs react to PCs? Or would that just bog down the game even more? Is it more work for a DM? What are your thoughts on negative NPC reactions to behavior of PCs? By the way, I only mentioned consequences for bad PC behavior because I have yet to hear a player complain positive reactions are detrimental to the game. The second thing I was hoping you would discuss is kind of related to this. Maybe you've covered it. Play styles and audience reactions. What are your thoughts on play styles, realistic versus theatrical versus cinematic? What are the pros and cons for which you prefer? How does live streaming games affect the choice of play style? Typically, stream games are seeking an audience. How does that affect the style of gameplay, both from the player and DM perspective? And how does it affect character choices, both before the play and after? Dave's brief talk about how people reacted to his Mr. Clean character in Mask got me thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot to unpack in this. This could have made a whole episode.
Let's talk about the first thing about PCs reacting or treating NPCs poorly, which you see. It's not. I don't think that's that's. I think that's a pretty common thing. Should I know what my opinion on the thing is, but what do you guys think about should there be repercussions? Should people take umbrage to being treated like an underling when you walk into their shop?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. In fact, I remember once we behaved like douchebags or said something intimidating or douchey, and the NPC got all, well, I'm not helping you then. And then we ended up having to backpedal.
Good morning.
Oops, can't just threaten them and be douchey, because why would they volunteer information if you're not pleasant to them?
Yeah, I think
just
this
like the real world.
Yeah, I think
Right.
this is a must. Like, if people, I mean, like we have the they're murder tourists is what people say, because that's sort of like the new incarnation, because they always have money. Like, very rarely are they actually like so we're changing it to murder tourists, because often they're carrying a whole bunch of stuff. They're very well off. They've got magic
got their
weapons,
luggage.
they've got all this, yeah, but they still go around like murdering people for information. So murder tourists are what, the joke about what players are.
It's perfect because they don't speak the language. They walk in with entitlement. They cut in front of the line. They come in and destroy the local economy with all of their fucking
Do
influences.
you know who I am? I have an annual pass.
Excuse me, peasant, out of my way. I need to speak to the magistrate.
Oh, something that doesn't just a quick complaint. So that doesn't matter to anyone who doesn't live near a Disney property. Oh my God, the kvetching about the annual passes. Jesus Christ. Okay.
They're gonna replace it with another thing anyway. Come on. They're not gonna give up that money.
For those who don't know that Disneyland has annual passes. What they were about $1,000 a year or something like that.
Oh yeah, more than
they were
that.
expensive.
The ones there's like different levels. You pay different amounts, and then you get a different number of days you can go.
Okay. And they just said they're going to discontinue it, and they're going to pay back everyone their whatever the prorated unused time they had when they closed in March. So
yeah.
And, oh my God, the complaints.
Yeah, they already have tested the new thing that they've wanted to switch to for a while, which is like it's called a Flex Pass, and it's like a reservation system. So that way they know how many pass holders are coming in a day, so they know how many tickets they can sell to tourists, which
Right.
is a genius system, because they were having problems with people who are coming as tourists who spend a lot more money, like getting locked out for the day.
Yeah, and they make a lot of money on people coming out of state. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, back to So basically, that was the annual pass holder joke. Is like, because anyone who's ever worked at Disneyland hates annual pass holders, because they're they're entitled jerks most of the time to the employees. So so they're that was it.
Boy, that Kimmy at happyjacks.org. All those Disnoids.
Real email. Well, it is a real email, but I haven't checked it in like 800 years.
I don't know if it is a real email. I have to look.
I was an annual pass holder for a long time, so I can say it. Anyway, but I mean, this is kind of like, this is kind of the joke about PCs with NPCs, right? They're jerks to them. They murder them. They threaten. Like, you go into the shop, and instead of being like, "Oh, I love this. I'm buying this for my mom. Hey, did you happen to see that?" It's always like, "Here's my sword. Tell me the information." Like, that's the joke. Right. So yeah, there absolutely 100% should be consequences for that behavior, and that is not just the fourth grade teacher and me talking about that.
The only bit of advice I can say about consequences is at some point you gotta learn to walk away from them. Otherwise, you're going to have a game that's about nothing but consequences. Because it turns out a lot of players, not the characters, but their players, a lot of them don't learn.
Yeah.
Or they dig their heels in and they'll start taking out
Yes.
the town. You know, they will literally like, fuck this town telling me what to do, and they will start going through and making everybody's life difficult.
Unless
they get chased out of the town.
Unless you're willing to totally throw out what you had planned for your adventure and have it be a jailbreak instead, have a hard limit on what you're willing to do for consequences.
I've known players that would rather die than get taken to jail.
Oh, I know.
They fight it tooth and nail, and then if they get sent into jail, they get pouty and mad, and they don't want to play anymore. And you're like, no, I'm sitting go for a jailbreak. They're like, I don't fucking care. I was gonna kill this whole town, and now you've screwed yourself.
And now
talk. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely talk to your players before you suddenly implement this if you haven't done it previously. Be like, hey, I've noticed this in our playing. I think it'd be an interesting thing to add. And it might be simple as the shopkeeper they threaten, just like maybe they start spreading rumors so they have higher prices everywhere else they go for a while.
Yeah,
it doesn't always have to be like, oh, I'm calling the constable or whatever, and then you get the jailbreak episode. So it can be small things like that. Just kind of be aware. Make sure you have multiple plans for that.
Right. Or if you like, I want you to make a custom sword for me. Oh, okay. Well, you were a dick to me, so it's going to take me 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do all the work for the people I like first.
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of thing. Like maybe they get a bad reputation, so it's really hard for them to get. Their food is really high priced and doesn't taste very good, and things like that. So
it's got
you don't
spit
have
in it.
you don't have to go with consequences that are story altering necessarily. Well, that's still story altering if it takes 3 weeks, but not to the extreme of like them being arrested and things like that.
I can totally see the whole town getting passive aggressive with them and jacking up the prices everywhere they go because they know they have money and they're all acquiesce and oh, it's so good to see you, sir. Oh, no, I see you like that rug. That's going to be 300 gold pieces.
Yeah.
I'm
so sorry, we don't have any rooms in the inn tonight. Oh, you could sleep in the stables. We'd love to accommodate you there.
Or my inn, I can actually rent you my whole house if you want it, but that's going to be $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
See, there needs to be some consequences to a certain extent, and it's always fun to watch the Min-Maxer and Grognard squirm when their threats, this is their only one thing to do, their threats just don't work, and they actually have to like try to role play their way out of a situation. But again, as Stu said, that's not a hill you want to die on. At some point you have to back off and let things happen and move the story forward.
Unless you're willing to throw it all out and say, okay, this is gonna escalate until someone decides it's not going to escalate anymore, and I don't know where that's going to end up because I'm not really attached to this NPC.
Something I would try to consider is what are the likelihood that this NPC has any recourse? So, how valiant is the town constable? Are they willing to take on the murder tourists?
Right.
How much money do they have, and how much is that worth to the shop owner? Are they willing to just let them be a dick to them so they can sell them their overpriced goods? Like, what are they willing to accept from the murder tourists, knowing that they don't have a recourse for it? So if they go into a super lawful town or something, and then they're dicks to everybody, then maybe they know that the town guard or whatever will take care of the problem. But if they're in like a small village, who's gonna deal with the murder tourists?
Oh yeah,
they probably just gonna let them do whatever they want and hope they go away like a natural disaster,
and just make them pay more.
Yeah.
See, and at some point you end up with this whole world building thing, like the head of the constables, and even some of the constables are like retired adventurers themselves or paladins, and so like you start to cross them, they're like, all right, we're bringing out our murder tourist squad, and they're going to come and confront you, and it's going to be this group of like level 20 ex-adventurers, veterans with
the murder
powers that
tourism response unit.
Yes, exactly. Do damage control.
That'd be awesome. Okay, now what about playstyles and audience reactions? What are your thoughts on playstyles, realistic versus theatrical versus cinematic? What are the pros and cons, and which do you prefer? How does live streaming games affect the choice of a playstyle? Typically, streamed games are seeking an audience. How does that affect the style of gameplay, both from player and DM perspective?
I feel like for me, at least, this is like a chicken and the egg question. Like I definitely feel myself when I'm streaming a game making choices that are affected by the fact that people are watching. Like there's times when you're playing at the table and you will let a conversation just go kind of slowly and everyone pause. You try not to have those like we don't care quite so much, but you don't want just like quiet while everybody thinks. Or like sometimes when you're like looking up a rule, like other people try and make conversation, so you're not all just sitting there with people watching you flip through pages in a book or things like that. So it definitely has some sort of effect on there. But
yes,
yeah,
especially that kind of stuff. The sort of bookkeeping sort of, I don't know, what do you housekeeping kind of stuff that you do, like when, especially like looking up rules and stuff like that. That's always kind of a cringy thing for me.
Yeah,
when we have to do that during a game, and it happens a lot, especially because I have a shit memory, and
same.
I just don't remember. I wonder.
I ran a playtest last night of Lighthearted for a thing I'm writing, and I got called out for vamping when they were doing character creation because there's no one watching. It's just us on Zoom, and I'm just like filling dead air.
Right.
And Kate looks at me and she's like, "They're reading. No one's listening to you." It's like shit.
It's even more confusing now that we're all streaming all the time.
Yeah.
Even when you're just playing on Zoom with friends and nobody's watching, and it's like you're feeling like you're on stream. Like it used to be like we had the studio, and that was where we had our studio like Persona games, and then we were like at someone's house in their living room, and that was like the chill, let's go eat snacks and like take a drink and like all those things games. But now it's just all the same.
Right.
I know that it affects my role playing in many ways. Maybe I role play a bit more than I would because I know I'm trying to be cinematic, but also sometimes there's been some choices that I haven't made because I don't want to get the hate mail.
It's true.
I get enough hate mail as it is, but there are some choices that I've thought about doing, and I'm like, I just don't want to deal with the fallout, And then even just etiquette at the table, like when nobody's watching, get up, go to the bathroom, eat more, and sometimes I'm constantly aware that I'm sort of being watched, and to behave myself a bit, and try to make what I'm doing interesting, and make maybe more interesting choices, or at least try to stick with something. And sometimes I've even found myself backing off because I find that I could dominate a table if I want with my backstory and be really selfish. No, and it's something that when you're trying to share a thing and everybody's watching, that's not fun to watch somebody do that all the time. And in a normal table where you're not being filmed, people can just say, or could go along with it or whatever because they can leave the room, or everybody's stuck at a table on the show.
Or just trying to be like, hey Stork, stop.
It's like if I want to do a sidebar. And we're not being filmed, you guys can just go into the backyard and have a cigarette or go to the bathroom and get sodas or whatever, and we can sidebar. But when everybody's sort of stuck at a table, it's not really fair to the audience and to the rest of the players. Mm-hmm. So it does affect perhaps like personal backstory choices more. I guess I try to avoid that.
I think it definitely affects me less than it used to now. Especially when we first started streaming, we were playing the vampire game, and I was Adriana the Ventru. And I was like, and it's a hard thing because I wanted to, I think there's a teacher in me that felt like we needed to be like the example and practice all the things we've been preaching all these years of like, don't split the party. I mean, we don't say don't split the party, but like don't be the dick, all these things, like, and it's sort of like I was trying to be like, it's like when we go to conventions and everybody gets drunk.
You just cut out again.
The teacher on the field trip, making sure everybody gets to wherever they need to be. Literally, there's one time where I had them all hold hands. It was a thing. So I felt like I was doing a lot of wrangling and trying to be fair to everybody when that wasn't really how I think Adrian, like thinking about it now, would have behaved. I think she would have been just like, oh, yeah, kill the game girl.
Right.
Done. But I didn't want to be like that, because that's, I mean, while that's very vampire, I felt that was a shitty thing to do, especially for a stream game. So I think there's a lot of situations where, especially with Stork and Max characters, where it's a lot more lenient or looking for ways to role play it realistically, that Adrian would have a logical reason for not just murdering them, and that sort of thing. So I think as I've gotten used to streaming and as I've gotten used to people watching, I do that less. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the jerk thing, and it's going to be really interesting. And it's going to turn out to be the thing that the audience loves more than anything else.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if my GMing has changed. I definitely am always thinking about the whole filling dead air thing.
Don't go shopping.
All the time. Yeah, fuck shopping. I hate shopping even when there's no one listening.
That's true.
I don't like I don't like shopping in real life. Why the fuck would I role play it?
The only time that's fun is having a custom weapon made.
Right. But I don't know if I've changed much about my GMing. I've certainly paid or tried to pay more attention to the advice I give on the air, and maybe try it more than I do. Although I'm pretty, I think, forthright about where my shortcomings are, and I think that shows up. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's really changed my GMing. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, other than the bookkeeping type stuff, I think that's changed a little bit for you.
Yeah.
But nothing as far as actually how you GM and run games and how your storytelling has changed.
A lot more NPCs. I do a lot more prep for NPCs now than I used to.
Yes.
You're also less props. Because I think when we had a table and we weren't being recorded.
Oh, well, yeah, if you're talking about online versus in person, yeah, right, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You made match book covers at one point for a game we had.
I love that shit.
That's what I mean. It used to say better living through office supplies because you really like good props. And something I got from you, because there's nothing cooler than handing a prop to the whole table and then suddenly they're like 5-year-old kids at Christmas and they're opening it up and looking at it and everybody huddles and they're starting to figure something out. And it doesn't really work well on a live stream, but it works well at a table.
I disagree. There's been a couple times where you've done cool props for streamed games. Not obviously when we're all remote. But there's been a bunch of times, the vampire game we did, it was completely campaign altering, that cool paper you made.
The newspaper.
The newspaper. And I know we talk about it all the time, and it's legends of old, the late old lady who owned a bar who ended up a mage with doilies. But I think you still do that, and I think we do a good job of kind of describing it, just because we've done, with the cameras you can hold it up now. That's different than
right.
It used to be. When we just recorded it, it was let us describe this thing to you.
No, I think
the thing that's changed the most, honestly, is generally we play a lot more regularly.
Yeah.
And that's changed lately just because life is in chaos right now. But when we started actually streaming games with live audiences, suddenly we were playing every other week for sure. And I think that has sort of changed the tone of our games because we're a lot more updated on things a lot of times than we used to be. And we can go back and watch it.
The biggest change between streaming games or recording games, I should say, and just playing just to play, that I can definitely say that there's a huge difference is the number of systems I now play.
Yeah.
Because if I was just running games because I wanted to run games,
It'll be GURPS.
it would. Well, it probably would be. It probably would still be GURPS. Because I still know the 3rd edition rules damn near by heart, and I don't have to look shit up ever. That's
awesome.
That's nice. So
Well,
that's
I love GURPS when it's run by somebody that knows the system, that they don't have to look at it. I mean, some of the best games I've had are with Mook, who knows that system backwards and forwards, and he makes it and that game plays really well if your GM is on it.
Yeah. I mean,
Makes the system invisible.
I never would have bought those fucking Star Wars FFG books that are still sitting up on that shelf.
Yeah.
I've used
They're pretty,
once.
though.
They are pretty. The artwork's
They got
great.
good maps.
They
cool,
got
cool
great
pictures
maps.
of planets.
Yeah. The artwork's
That's
fantastic.
about all I use them for.
We had a good time playing that system. I actually really enjoyed that.
Okay.
I watched a couple of those
stand
plays, actual plays, and it
couldn't
wasn't
stand- I
a lot of good theater.
Stand that.
Something that changed for me when I started doing a lot of streamed games is I clip scenes. I'm more likely to clip a scene than to let it play longer if I feel like it's losing gas.
Yeah.
Just because I don't like at a table, you can kind of let it go and see if it's going to pick back up, right? And it's not really hurting anybody. But when it's on screen, it's like, well, I don't know if this is going anywhere. It feels like they don't know where they're going, but we're just sort of riffing and okay, let's cut here and move on.
Right.
So I'm a lot more likely to clip scenes early.
That's a very good point.
Stream.
I'm much more likely to write things down and take notes. It's really actually difficult for me to focus for a whole game session because of my ADHD. So even in-person games, it's hard. So like the chat was actually something that was really, really helpful for me because it would keep me engaged. And it sounds like it's me being selfish because, I'm not in the scene, but that's not it. It's literally like my brain is like, oh, look at the light. That light is really pretty. Oh, they're talking to me again. I don't know what just happened. So the chat actually was something that was really helpful to me to stay immersed in the game as it was happening because I could read the chat that was generally about what was happening.
Right.
And kind of stay informed that way and like look back and kind of tune in. And it gave me, for whatever weird reason, multitasking helps me focus on a single thing. So that's actually been something that's been incredibly helpful for me in my role playing. And it's something that didn't really matter as much. But I think if you go back and listen to the audio only podcasts before we started video streaming, I think there's probably a pretty big difference in how up to date I am. Because there's even times where now I can like correct other people. Like, oh, this was happening. And it's like, haha, look at me. And that's actually one of the things that's been really difficult for me with not streamed, but like video games, like playing all of us on Zoom or whatever. It's really hard for me to focus sometimes.
Mm-hmm. They also brought up play styles, like what's...
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It said, what are your thoughts on play styles, realistic versus theatrical versus cinematic? That feels like a personal choice, like a personal preference kind of thing. If we're talking about what play styles are better for streamed games, I favor cinematic, but I don't know that you could say that one of these play styles is objectively better at a table.
Oh yeah, I would think it's going to depend on the people playing and in the audience watching.
Yeah.
It would have to be a balance. If you have one person who's doing a very realistic play on a character next to somebody who's incredibly theatrical, there's going to be that dominance there that kind of Stork was alluding to earlier, where that person gets more time, that person gets more focus, unless they are incredibly aware. But even then, it's going to feel a little bit lopsided. So I think the most important thing, even though there's different play styles for sure, like everyone's a little bit different, and we've got different types of gamers, as we've talked about many times before. But I think generally that's something that has to be kind of talked about in the tone, and in like your session 0, like, hey, this is going to be a really cinematic game, and you're going to talk about, if you're going to be, I don't know.
I think
of really, like Marvel or like, soldiers, like realistic soldiers in a real situation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think setting affects a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Playing a SWAT team is going to be radically different than playing magical kids in a university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Who was it? MJS, thank you for the email. We appreciate it. That's it? Anything?
Yeah.
What's the lighthearted Kickstarter URL going to be, or where do people go to find out about that again?
You can go to lighthearted.games. to learn more, and click on notify me on launch. That'll take you right to the Kickstarter page, and that'll turn into the actual Kickstarter page when it goes live.
That sounds great, but you haven't actually told me anything about the game. Why would I want to play Lighthearted?
Well, Lighthearted is a magical 80s RPG where you play a prep, jock, geek, rebel, or outcast. You know, like those kids in the Breakfast Club, except you're just about to start magical community college.
Yeah.
So is it like a combination of that and Community?
It's somewhere between the Breakfast Club and the Magicians on like a setting level.
Okay.
And it's somewhere between Savage Worlds and PBTA on a system level.
Oh, is it your own system too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I just
wrote
assumed wrongly that it was a Powered by the Apocalypse hack.
Yeah, it took all of the lessons my wife and I have learned about PBTA over the last like 3 years and tried to pair that with our favorite die mechanic, which is the Savage Worlds roll 2 and keep the highest with exploding dice.
Very cool.
So it's like an interesting mix there. It's got like strengths, which are kind of like edges. It's got everything I love about role playing games. It's like my love letter to how I like to play games.
Very nice.
And your AP of that is going so well. It's so cool, and it's neat because I think you're one of your first. You ran for Rainbow Railroad, like one of your very first like streams of it, and it was like back in beta testing, I think.
That was when it was still a Savage Worlds setting. My original plan was just to make a setting for Savage Worlds, and then through playing it, we realized that we just didn't need a lot of the combat stuff because it's about kids, it's about their feelings, it's about how they react to each other in their relationships, and so like a lot of the combat and wounds stuff fell away. And we brought in a lot of the there's an emotion spectrum, which is like a variable wild die. So depending on how you're feeling, you roll a different die for your wild die. And we brought in things like you can take narrative conditions, like how fate does conditions, but they get applied to your stats. So they still affect how well your character performs. Stuff like that. That's getting
awesome.
into the nitty gritty of that.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's been great to watch its development, and it's super fun to watch your AP every other Monday.
Oh, thank you.
Super exciting.
I really like playing it.
And the art is awesome. Yay, Minerva.
Oh my gosh, Minerva is the best. Yeah, let me get out of the way.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, totally pro. That looks awesome. Minerva's a friend of the show. She's been watching for a while.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead. Anything else?
No.
Going once, going twice?
My baby's still cute.
What?
My baby's still cute.
Of course.
It's very important. Everybody knows that.
That doesn't change until teen years.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know, my baby's pretty cute. He's
What?
17. Or almost 17. I said my baby's pretty cute, and he's almost 17, so.
Thank you for joining us for season 28, episode 1 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
Stork.
My name's Gimme.
And I'm Kurt.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, happyjacks.org/live. Until then, stay safe. Thank you very much. Bye.
We pursue this hobby from Michigan to Australia and maybe East Timor. Be it riffs or exalted, GURPS or Dungeons and Dragons, hero, pathfinder, fate or savage wild.
Welcome to Costco.
Though we could do with less burping.
You're right.
Happy Jack's podcast will be douchebags on.
Why problem make when you no problem have you don't want to make?
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.